the only 5 Japanese chair exercises that are twice as good as walking after 60. Did you know that in Japan more than 90,000 people have already surpassed 100 years of age? It is the country with the most centenarians in the world. And the most impressive thing is that the majority of them still climb stairs, walk on their own, and take care of their own homes without help. A study from the University of Tokyo followed Okinawan elderly people for decades and discovered that functional leg strength was the factor that most predicted who would maintain independence after 80 years of age. While in the West, the fitness culture insists on heavy barbells and extreme squats. The longest living Japanese people never needed any of that. They prefer to build functional strength in a simple and consistent way. That is why today you will see 5 exercises that Japanese people use for legs that never lose their strength. These are 5 movements performed sitting in a chair without pain, without risk of falling, without needing to leave home. In other words, perfect for you who are already past 60. Before we begin, please leave in the comments your name and the city you are watching our content from. We would love to know. Exercise number 1, seated knee extension. This is the simplest exercise on the list, and perhaps for that very reason it is the most underestimated. In Japan, movements similar to this one appear within Rajyo Taiso, the morning gymnastics broadcast on the radio since 1928, that still gathers elderly people in parks before 7 in the morning. The logic behind it is simple. They understand that strength does not need to come from heavy loads, but rather from constant and conscious repetition. Geriatric research conducted with Japanese populations shows that quadriceps strength is among the most determining factors for predicting who will continue walking without support after 80 years of age. This happens because the quadriceps is the main muscle responsible for lifting the body from a chair, climbing steps, and preventing falls when you lose your balance. This movement works mainly the quadriceps, including the vastus medialis, the vastus lateralis, and the rectus femoris. To perform it correctly, sit in the chair with your spine straight, resting against the backrest and your feet supported on the floor. Slowly extend one leg until it is completely straight, without forcefully locking the knee. Hold for 2 seconds at the top and lower in a controlled manner, without letting your foot hit the floor. Repeat with the other leg. An extra tip that makes a real difference is to dorsiflex the ankle, pulling your toes toward your body during the extension. This increases quadriceps recruitment and also works the shin muscles. A common mistake is using momentum, kicking the leg upward instead of controlling the movement with the muscles. This reduces the stimulus and increases the risk of joint discomfort. Another mistake is not completing the extension out of fear of pain, which limits range of motion gains over time. Perform 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions for each leg, resting about 30 to 45 seconds between them. This exercise is contraindicated for people with acute knee osteoarthritis, with intense pain, or who are in recent recovery from knee surgery without medical clearance. In these cases, reduce the range of motion and speak with a physical therapist before progressing. A very common misconception is thinking that an exercise performed sitting down does not produce real results, as if true strength only came from a gym. In practice, for a person who has already lost some of their strength over the years, this type of constant stimulus is sufficient to reverse a good part of the age-related muscle loss that researchers call sarcopenia. As a recommendation, when you feel that 15 repetitions have become too easy, a simple and safe progression is to add a light resistance band around the ankle before extending the leg, increasing resistance without needing any expensive or complicated equipment. Exercise number 2, seated marching. Seated marching is practically the seated version of walking, and that is why Japanese people use it as a bridge between rest and physical activity for people who have lost the confidence to move on their own. In Japanese community centers focused on elderly people called kaigo yobu, this type of movement is taught precisely to reduce the fear of falling before reintroducing traditional walking. The central idea is to reactivate the neuromuscular pattern of gait in a completely safe environment. This exercise works the hip flexors intensely, mainly the iliopsoas, as well as recruiting the core to keep the trunk stable during the alternating leg movement. To perform it, sit with your spine straight and raise one knee toward your chest as if you were marching in place, and alternate with the other leg at a steady rhythm. An extra tip is to gently swing your arms in an alternating fashion as if you were actually walking. This improves coordination between the upper and lower limbs, a skill that is lost with a sedentary lifestyle. A common mistake is rounding your back backward while raising the knee, which removes the tension from the hip and overloads the lower back. Remember to keep your trunk as stable as possible. Another mistake is performing the movement too quickly and losing control of your breathing. I recommend starting with 30 seconds of continuous marching and gradually progressing to 60 seconds in 2 to 3 sets. This exercise tends to be well tolerated, but people with symptomatic lumbar disc herniation should reduce the range of motion and avoid raising the knee above hip level. What many people do not know is that seated marching also works as a small cardiovascular stimulus when performed at a steady pace for longer periods, and not just as a coordination exercise. A common misconception is thinking that because it is done in place, it does not count as real physical activity. As a practical recommendation, try to synchronize the movement with a song of moderate tempo, which naturally helps maintain the cadence and makes the practice less monotonous over the course of the repetitions. Exercise number 3, seated pillow squeeze. This exercise is one of those small secrets that rarely appear in Western fitness videos, but that Japanese physical therapists frequently recommend for elderly men and women who report loss of stability when walking. The traditional Japanese culture of sitting on cushions on the floor in a position called seiza naturally requires control of the inner thigh and pelvic muscles, something that much of the Western world lost by adopting high chairs from childhood. This exercise reclaims that recruitment in a simple way, using only a cushion or pillow. The movement works mainly the adductors, the inner thigh muscles, and also indirectly activates the pelvic floor, which is important for both men and women in their senior years. To perform it, sit with your spine straight and place a soft pillow between your knees. Press your knees together against the pillow with firmness. Hold the contraction for 3 to 5 seconds and release slowly. The beauty of this exercise lies in its ability to train an almost always forgotten muscle group without requiring any equipment beyond something you already have at home. A common mistake is holding your breath during the squeeze, which unnecessarily increases blood pressure at the moment of effort. Breathe steadily, exhaling as you squeeze. Another mistake is using an object that is too rigid, which prevents a complete muscle contraction. Perform 2 to 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions, with short pauses of 20 to 30 seconds. People with a recent hip replacement should take extra caution and consult the responsible surgeon before including this movement, since forced adduction may not be recommended in certain post-surgical protocols. There is a misconception that this type of adductor exercise is intended only for women, but men also benefit directly since the inner thigh muscles contribute to hip stability during walking in both sexes. If you do not have a pillow available, a simple alternative is to use a small ball, such as a Pilates ball or even a rolled-up sock ball, maintaining the same principle of pressing your knees against a soft object. Exercise number 4, seated heel raises. The calf is called by many health professionals the second heart of the body because it helps pump blood back up to the heart against the force of gravity, something especially relevant for those who spend long periods sitting down, a common reality among elderly people with reduced mobility. In Japan, where life expectancy is one of the highest on the planet, taking care of leg circulation is treated almost like a hygiene routine, not as an optional exercise. Many Japanese elderly people perform movements like this one several times a day between one task and another without even realizing they are training. This exercise works the calf, including the gastrocnemius and mainly the soleus, since the seated position with the knee bent favors the recruitment of this deeper portion of the muscle. To perform it, sit with your feet supported on the floor and raise your heels as high as you can, rising onto the balls of your feet, and lower slowly without letting your heels slam onto the floor. A valuable extra tip is to vary the position of your feet between parallel, turned out, and turned in across the sets, as this helps recruit different portions of the muscle. Since the calf is composed mainly of slow twitch fibers, it responds better to longer sets. So do not be afraid to increase the number of repetitions. A common mistake is performing the movement too quickly without controlling the descent, which reduces time under tension and the muscular stimulus. Perform 2 to 3 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions, always prioritizing control over speed. The calf also plays an important role in body balance, since it is one of the last lines of defense against a fall when you lose your stability. So strengthening it is a direct investment in accident prevention. This exercise is safe for the vast majority of people, but those who have frequent nighttime leg cramps or severe venous insufficiency should perform the movement with reduced range of motion and observe how the body responds. A common conceptual mistake is thinking that because it is performed seated, the stimulus is too weak to produce results. In fact, for someone who is untrained, the seated raise is already sufficient to significantly improve local circulation and muscular endurance. As a progression recommendation, when you feel more confidence and balance, a natural evolution is to begin performing standing heel raises supported on a step, allowing the heels to descend below the level of the step. This considerably increases the range of motion and, consequently, the muscular activation, but should only be attempted when you already have enough security to stand without support. Exercise number 5. Ankle circles. Before putting on traditional sandals such as Gita or Zori, which require fine ankle control to walk without stumbling, many generations of Japanese people naturally mobilize this joint in their daily lives. Today, with the constant use of closed and rigid footwear, this natural ankle mobility is lost over time, and that is precisely what this exercise tries to reclaim. It also tends to open exercise classes for elderly people in Japan, serving as preparation before any more intense movement. The main goal of this exercise is ankle joint mobility and improved proprioception, meaning the ability of your body to perceive the position of your foot in space without needing to look down. To perform it, lift one foot slightly off the floor and draw slow circles with the tip of your foot, first in one direction and then in the other, keeping the movement concentrated in the ankle joint without moving the knee. An extra tip is to try drawing the alphabet in the air with the tip of your foot, which naturally forces the ankle to move in every possible direction. A common mistake is making the circle too quickly, losing the full range of motion. Go slowly and try to feel the stretch at every point along the path. Perform 10 to 15 circles in each direction, for each foot. This exercise has virtually no contraindications, being indicated even for those who are in the final phase of recovery from ankle sprains as long as there is no acute pain during the movement. In case of localized pain at any point in the circle, reduce the range of motion until that specific point stops causing discomfort. Think of the ankle as the hinge of a door. If it does not move frequently, it starts to rust and creaks with every use, and that is exactly what happens to the joint when it goes long periods without being mobilized through its full range of motion. A common mistake is considering this exercise too simple to be worth the effort, setting it aside precisely because it seems too unchallenging. As a recommendation, vary the speed of the circles between sets, alternating between slower and faster movements, which demands more fine motor control of the ankle over time. Now that you have learned all 5 chair exercises, let us move on to the 2 bonus exercises. These next 2 movements are not performed sitting in a chair, but we decided to include them because they are extremely relevant for mobility, leg strength, and functional longevity, so make sure to check them out. Bonus exercise number 1, Tibialis raise. The tibialis raise has gained recent popularity in the West, but the principle behind it was already known for some time by Japanese physical therapists who treat falls in elderly people. The shin muscles are responsible for lifting the tip of the foot during walking, preventing the toes from dragging on the ground, one of the most common triggers of stumbling in people over 60 years of age. Cultures with a habit of walking frequently on uneven terrain, such as the gardens and trails common in Japanese temples, tend to keep these muscles naturally more active throughout life. This exercise works the tibialis anterior, the muscle located on the front of the shin. To perform it, rest your back against a wall with your feet a little distance away from it, and raise the tips of your feet toward your shins, keeping your heels fixed on the floor, then lower in a controlled manner. An extra tip is to lightly rest your hands against the wall beside your body to ensure complete stability during the movement, especially during the first weeks of practice. When you include the tibialis raise in your routine, you tend to notice fewer episodes of stumbling on uneven surfaces after a few weeks of consistent practice. A common mistake is trying to compensate by bending the knees, which removes the tension from the tibialis anterior. Keep your legs straight and the movement isolated in the ankle. Perform 2 to 3 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions, gradually increasing the time under tension as you feel more control. This exercise is contraindicated during acute phases of ankle tendinitis or recent fractures in the shin area, still in the consolidation phase, cases in which clearance from a health professional is essential before resuming. Many people believe that strengthening the shin is only relevant for runners or athletes, but this is a mistaken view since anyone who walks every day depends on these muscles to avoid stumbling on small irregularities in the ground. As an alternative for those who have difficulty maintaining balance leaning only against the wall, there is also the option of performing the movement seated, raising the tips of the feet with the heels supported on the floor, a safer variation for the first days of practice before progressing to the standing version. Bonus exercise number 2, resting squat. Few postures summarize the Japanese culture of keeping the body mobile as well as the resting squat. Before the popularization of Western-style toilets, it was common to find washiki-style bathrooms in Japan, which require precisely this deep squatting position to be used. Add to that the habit of working in gardens, arranging plants, and performing household tasks close to the ground, and you understand why so many Japanese elderly people can lower and rise from the floor with an ease that impresses Western visitors. Observational studies in Asian populations have associated the ability to maintain a comfortable deep squat with the feet fully supported on the floor, with better hip and ankle mobility throughout aging, functioning almost as an informal indicator of good functional health. This movement works the quadriceps and the gluteus maximus isometrically, in addition to requiring a generous range of ankle dorsiflexion and hip opening. To perform it, stand with your feet shoulder-width apart, lower into a deep squat, keeping your heels supported on the floor, and hold the position, resting your elbows lightly between your knees if you need more balance. An extra tip for those who feel difficulty with their heels is to place a folded towel underneath them at the beginning of practice, gradually reducing the height as ankle mobility improves. A common mistake is forcing the position beyond what the body currently allows, creating unnecessary discomfort in the knees. Take it easy and respect your current mobility limit. Start by holding the position for 15 to 20 seconds and gradually progress to 45 to 60 seconds in 2 to 3 sets throughout the day. This exercise is contraindicated for people with knee or hip replacements without specific clearance from an orthopedic surgeon, as well as severe osteoarthritis cases that cause intense pain in the deep position. In these cases, a partial squat with less range of motion already brings relevant mobility benefits without pushing the joint beyond what is safe. A fairly common misconception is thinking that only those who are born flexible can reach this position, when in reality the vast majority of limitations come simply from lack of practice over the years, not from a fixed characteristic of the body. As a recommendation for those who are just starting out, holding onto a firm support such as the back of a stable chair or the handle of an open door helps considerably to maintain balance while ankle and hip mobility is still developing. If you enjoyed this and want to also see the best stretches used by Japanese people to heal years of poor posture and neglect of their own bodies, we have a video appearing right now showing each one of them in detail. It is important knowledge for anyone who is already past 50, so make sure to check it out. Thank you for watching all the way through, and may God bless you, my friend.